Hey, welcome back, my friends, once again to Tips from the Server Room. This is episode number 67 for October the 21st, 2014. I'm your host, Jack, and I'm going to guide you through this magical world of networking, computers, servers, fiber optics, switches, routers, and all things connected. Tonight I'm starting something new. I'm going to try it out and see how it works out for us anyway. And we'll see, if anybody watches this. But I'm recording this for YouTube. So you're going to be able to see me live and in living color. Some people do like watching people do podcasts. And, I wanted to do this as a video in case you just wanted to sit and listen to me rattle on about all things connected. This show is a proud member of the Tech Podcast. If it's tech, it's here. Check out all the great tech podcasts at techpodcast.com. Only thing I wanted to mention to you before we get started here, obviously, is this video that I'm recording. So where would you find the video at? Well, if you go to YouTube and you subscribe to my channel at 42, the number 4, the number 2, Technoman. You can find me on YouTube. It's very easy. I believe even if you search for Jack's Tech Corner, you should be able to find that also. And the video will be there, and I'll be starting a new playlist so that way you can find these videos and follow along with them if you care to do so. If you have an interest in my live Windows course that I'm working on, this is already October 21st, so I don't know if I'm going to get it underway in October. I still have a lot of things to drill down with this yet, a lot of pricing structure. But email me if you're interested. Right now we have about 8 people that are on board and ready to go. But email me at jackstechcorner@gmail.com if you think you'd like to be involved with that live server course. And it's going to be Windows Server 2012. That course will be running for 6 weeks, 1 night a week for 2-hour sessions. So 2 hours, 1 night a week for 6 weeks. Also, if you have a chance, jump over to my website at tipsfromtheserverroom.com where you can comment on these shows, and I wish that you would. And you can leave me a voice message and ask me any questions you might have about servers, Windows, connected computers, even if you have Mac questions, because I'm pretty experienced at connecting OS 10, pretty much any version, and binding that to Windows servers and making that all work. So if you have those questions, get those in there also. You can send a voicemail to 724-701-0550. Once again, 724-701-0550. If you have any questions or future ideas for the shows, I would love to hear from you. You can email me at jackstechcorner@gmail.com. And you can follow me on Twitter, and that is at Technoman. That is at Technoman. The first thing I want to talk about tonight to kick off this show, I received an email earlier today, and it was one of these alert emails. Now, I don't know, a lot of people think these are spam or whatever, but I thought I'm going to read this one just to check it out and see what it was, because the title, the subject line really intrigued me, and I thought I would share that with you on the show tonight. And it says, ransomware hits an admin workstation and kills 7 servers. Now, folks, listen to this. I'm going to read down through this stuff and really pay attention to this, because this can affect all of us. Here's a tale about ransomware that will make your blood run cold. Very appropriate with the Halloween around the corner. This is a true story. This actually happened last week, and this is in the words of the system admin. We are about a 250 employee nonprofit, and we heavily rely on our computer systems in almost everything we do. Yesterday, one of our admin workstations was hit with CryptoWall version 2.0. And because this workstation had drives mapped to all of their servers, and the administration had administrator privileges, all 7 servers got encrypted, and they were all dead in the water. CryptoWall took about 55 minutes to encrypt 75 gigabytes of information, and it had penetrated most of our network before we found out what was happening. They had to isolate the workstation and get it disconnected from the network. We had backups of 7 servers, but it would take days to restore those. So we have opted to find out if we could decrypt the files first. Luckily, we had just signed up for It's called KB4s. I mean, no B4s. I'm sorry. NOWBE, the number 4. It's by Kevin Micknick, Security Analysis Training, which came with a crypto ransom guarantee in case something like this would happen. We called them and we got instant help for the very urgent problem. They had Bitcoins ready in a wallet and were able to pay the $500 ransom within hours. The crypto wall criminals were actually also pretty quick. And we were issued our decryption keys soon after. We immediately started to decrypt all the files with the provided decryption tool and pulled an all-nighter. It was amazing how long it took to get through all the data. It finally was completed around 8:30 a.m. So we estimated that 18 hours of running the decryption tool on our 75 gigs of data. Now, think back here at the beginning of the story. It's pretty interesting because it says it only took 55 minutes to encrypt the 75 gigs of data, but it took them 18 hours to decrypt the 75 gigs of data. So that's pretty amazing stuff. So far, it only appears that one older database file was corrupted during the encryption, but we restored it from a backup and all is fine. I can't say enough about No B4's quick response and support with the situation. They dodged a very big bullet. While only a portion of our staff have completed the training, something tells me that more will be completing the training requirements after this event. And it says, thank you so much. And it was from an IT director of that actual company. And it says here, the last line is, as you can see, ransomware is hitting a key employee like an admin or perhaps a CEO controller or a CEF or CFO with lots of access can do a lot of damage. Having all employees step through security awareness training and sending them simulated phishing schemes and now also vanishing attacks will also help to eliminate some of the problems and be a one step in the defense of this happening. Now, folks, I can't tell you this enough, and you've been listening to my shows for a while here. We're on episode obviously 67, and we've been talking a lot. You need to learn about security measures, but I think it's even more us being systems administrators. We need to educate our end users even more. The more we can educate the end users, the better off we are. I mean, how many people, and folks, we've had machines in our networks just get blasted by spyware, by malware, and we have a lot of users that believe that everything in emails are cute, or something funny, and they click on it, and something comes up, a box comes up, and most users click yes because it's on the left, and we read left to right. I believe that's the case. And they want to click yes without even thinking. And next thing you know, their computers are just wrecked, right? So the education of the employees that you have, the education of the workers, because no matter what you do, no matter how you do it, and no matter how much effort we put into our spam filters, our firewalls, things will still get through to your network. That's just the way it happens. And you need to be on top of this. Even the best virus scanners, the best antiviruses we can run, something can happen. And, one thing you have to watch, be very careful. And I know, even with this company, 250 employees of a nonprofit, I've worked for nonprofits in the past, and we've had many employees. Sometimes an employee would want to install something on their computer. And you as a network administrator, you may be one guy for that 250 computers, let's say. And what seems to happen is, more times than not, you want to kind of be nice and kind of be kind. So we want to give those people, administrative privileges on their computers so they can install something if they need to. And this is the kind of problems that we can get into. And I know most of you out there probably have a mapped network drive, because you probably have your storage, your file server somewhere. And if you've been listening to shows and you said, yeah, Jack, I might have taught you how to build a file server, and you said it was a great idea. So you did that. But if one user accidentally has write access across all those different folders on that drive, they can wipe that server in no time. So be very, very careful and make sure that you watch over your network closely. And I know you can't be there all the time. You can't watch everything all the time, but do your very, very best. And that story, I just wanted to relate it to you because it's scary. I mean, when I read it, I was like, oh man, this can happen. It can happen to us as an administrator. You may get something on your computer and pow, everything on your network is a disaster. So be careful. All right. So as I told you last week, we talked about setting up a print server last week. And this week, I wanted to go in depth a little bit about managing that remote print server. So this is kind of a continuation from last week's show. So hopefully you set your print server up. You've been playing with it a little bit, and you said, yeah, I don't really know how to manage this. So we're just going to talk a little bit tonight about how you would manage it. I'm just going to go through this little, write-up I have here, and we'll talk about it as we go along. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So the print management tool provides a central location from which all print servers or print services for an entire network can be managed. And remember, this is a big time saver. So far, we have only looked at managing the print server running on the local computer. Let me go through here. So configuration consists of 2 Windows servers, systems named Windows Server 1 and Windows Server 2. Both systems have the print services role installed, and print management on Windows Server 1 will be configured to also manage print services on Windows Server 2. This is achieved by first launching the print management on the local Windows Server 1 system, and do that by Start, Administrative Tools, Print Management. Right-clicking on the Print Servers node on the tree hierarchy in the left-hand panel and selecting the Add Remove Servers option. From the menu, select Add Remove Servers option, and the resulting dialog box, you can currently configure your print server under the management tool of the local print management. If no remote print servers have been added previously, the only server listed will be the local system. To add an additional print server, either enter a comma-separated list of server names, or you can use the Browse button. You can locate the server on your network. When one or more servers have been selected, click the Add button to add those servers to the list, and that will put those in your actual management list. Once all the required remote print servers have been added to the list, click on Apply and then close the dialog box and return to the main print management window. The new print servers will appear alongside the local server under Print Servers in the left-hand panel. So again, this is if you're wanting to add another print server to your main print server. And then you can manage those all with one management console. So it makes it easier, and we know this already because if we're running Active Directory across our domain, it's easier to go to one server. Imagine if you had to go to your login server and put people on Active Directory, and then you had to go to your file server and put people in Active Directory there, and then you had to go to your application server and put people there, and then you had to go to your Exchange server and put people there. It's so much easier being a network admin just to simply put everybody in one Active Directory container on our Active Directory server and have that propagate across all those servers. And that's exactly why we do that, because it makes it easier to manage. Now, Windows Server 2008 also provides the ability to migrate both printers and print queues from one print server to another. This makes it easy. For example, to take a print server offline for maintenance or to permanently reassign a printer from one print server to another, the steps are outlined below. Let's see here. Assume that the print management has been configured to manage both the source and the target print servers as outlined in the section of the chapter. All right. So let's go down here. So after reviewing the list information, click Next and select a suitable location to save the printer export file and click Next once again to perform the export process. So we're going to export the printers from one server, and you can save those as an export file, and you can import those to another server. Now, depending on the number of printers being exported and the size of the drivers to be exported, the export process may take a few minutes to complete. If the export was successful, a message will appear beneath the progress bar stating this fact. If the export was unsuccessful, then click on the Event Viewer button, and it will teach you and it will show you the cause of the problem, and it will actually give you the action that you may take to correct the issue. And folks, we talked about the Event Viewer in a few shows back, pretty far back. You have to dig around for that show, but we talked about the Event Viewer and how the Event Viewer can save us so much hassles. You know, so many people want to dig around their server and try to be this investigative person and try to figure out the cause of an issue. I don't think the Event Viewer is used enough by so many network administrators out there. If we have a network issue, not a networking issue, let's go back. If we have a server issue, if somebody loses, something happens on the file server and they lose connectivity to that file server, you know, the first place I'm going to look is the Event Viewer to see if there's an event, something that happened to that file server, to that user account, or there was a security issue with that account. That's the stuff you need to look up, and you have to be able to read the Event Viewer, and it's pretty much plain text, right? So it's pretty easy to get through. All right, so the next step we're going to do is import the printers into our target server. Begin by right-clicking on the destination server in the Print Management window and selecting Import Printers from a File. In the resulting dialog, use the Browse button, navigate to your export file, select it, and click on the Next to proceed. Once the file has been read, a screen will appear identical to the one displayed prior to exporting the printer objects in the preceding step. You will review the information and click on Next to display the Select Import Options screen. Once you do that, you would just go through and make sure you have everything selected. These are the options required: is keep existing printers and import copies. It is possible that the printer being imported is already also installed on the destination server or on your new server. With this option selected, the original printer on the destination server will be left unchanged and a new printer imported as a copy. Overwrite the existing printers. If the printer being imported is already installed on the target server, it is overwritten by the imported copy when this option is selected. List the printers that were previously listed. When selected, only the printers that were already listed in Active Directory will still be listed after the import process is completed. List all printers. All printers are listed in Active Directory. Don't list any printers, obviously means no printers are listed in Active Directory. Once your required settings are configured, click Next to initiate the printer import process. The printer configuration, drivers, queues will be subsequently be imported onto the target print server. If any errors are reported, click on the Open Event Viewer button to obtain the additional information. In particular, be mindful of printers that were physically connected to the source print server. Since they are not physically connected to the target server, you will receive an error and it will occur during the migration. Even if the printer was physically moved to the target system prior to migration, it is also possible that it is connected to a different physical port, so that could be used as a source server. Such problems can be resolved by right-clicking on the Import Printer in Print Management, select Properties, and making the necessary configuration changes. Now, I don't believe, and as I stated last week, we don't have any printers plugged into our USB ports on our servers. You may, in fact, do that on a small network. I have one client, I told you that their server is actually sitting, out in a common area. And that was decided on because they don't have enough money to build a physical server room. We found a great place, a little closet, and I thought, we're going to wire it and put the servers in there and put their Comcast Infinity modem in there and put their switches in there. But then I started thinking a little bit. There's no cooling in there, so this gear is going to get really, really hot. But their office space is cooled, for the most part of the heated part of the Pennsylvania summers. They cool the office. So we figured we'd want that server, switches and everything to be more out in the open. So we did that. And what we did then was those servers then can stay, cooler and more climate controlled. So we did hook a USB printer up to that server because it's centrally located and everybody can get to that printer. And we saved them a little bit of money off of an IP printer. Now, they do also have laser printers, and that is actually connected through their Unix server as a print server. So it doesn't have to be Windows. We primarily talk about Windows on this show, but it doesn't have to be a Windows server. I mean, you may have a Mac server running, like a Mac Mini. You may purchase that to be your print server. Of course, the configurations are going to be a little different than we're talking about here tonight, but that is a possibility. You can also have a Linux. You can get Ubuntu, really any flavor of Linux, and you can configure that to be your print server if you're trying to save some money. But again, we're just talking about things being centrally plugged into it. I don't recommend it unless your client kind of dictates it and the situation dictates it that is what you want to do, is centrally plug that in. All right, so we're just going to go over here about configuring some printer permissions. Access to printers is controlled through the configuration of printers permissions. By default, a printer is accessible to all users on the local system, and if shared, all users elsewhere on the network. Printer permissions are divided into two categories: special permissions and standard permissions. Before describing how to change the permissions on the printer, let's first talk about some important things to understand of meanings of each permission option. Okay, so if you give somebody the permissions to print, it allows users and groups to send documents to the printer and to manage their own print jobs. It also includes the read special permission, allowing viewing but not alteration of the printer permissions. Okay, then manage printers. Allow full management of the printer, including changing shared status, changing the permissions and properties, taking ownership of the printer and print jobs, and starting and stopping the print jobs. And it includes the read, change, and take ownership special permissions. Managing documents allows the users and the groups to manage print jobs, but does not provide the ability to print. Permission consists of pausing, restarting, resuming, reordering, and canceling print jobs. It includes the read, change, take ownership special permissions. Let's see here. So we got down here is read permissions. Users and groups may view the permissions on the printer. Change permissions. Users and groups may change the permissions on the printer and take ownership. Obviously, it's taking ownership of the printer. Now, out of these, my standard users, I would always set up to be able to print. That's what I want them to do, is print. But in some cases, and this may happen in your industry, I know it happens a lot in our industry, is somebody will send a print job and be like, oh, wait, I didn't mean to hit 100 duplicate copies of that. I meant to hit 1. Well, at that point, you may want to have them manage printers, because then it gives them the ability to start and stop the print job. So then they can kill that print job out of the print queue, and they don't have to worry about it. So Either print or manage print. Now, managing documents, you save that for your admins, your administrators, and the change permissions and take ownership. Save that more or less for your admins of your systems there. So very important. Okay, the current permissions for the printers may be viewed and changed by right-clicking on the printer in the Print Management tool and selecting Properties and then selecting on the Security tab. To change the permissions for the currently listed user or group, select the user and or group and change the allow and deny permissions to the required setting. When the settings are configured, click on Apply to commit the changes. If the user or group is not currently listed in the property dialog box, click the Add button to invoke the Select User or Group dialog. Change the location setting if necessary, and then enter the names of the users or groups separated by a semicolon in the bottom text box. Click on the Check Name button to verify the user or the group is in the current location scope. Now, that is no more than if we're giving permissions on a local computer. It would be the same way. You would search for that group. Sometimes we have to add groups to our computers and give them certain permissions on a local workstation. And that is all pulling from Active Directory. Now, I would highly recommend when you're setting a print server up, go back to your Active Directory and make sure that you set up some print groups. Now, if you've never set security groups up before, you can go back. I believe I have a YouTube video on setting up security groups. You can check out that video. It's definitely in my online classes where you go through the classes and you learn how to set groups up in your Active Directory. Or just pick up a book and read how to set up groups and security groups. We have a ton of security groups, and what I use these groups for on my Active Directory is grouping people based on their location in the organization, right? Because Active Directory is an organization. I call that an OU because it's an organizational unit. That means that allows us as tech directors to organize our Active Directory. If you have what I call a flat Active Directory, where you have users and groups and computers, and you have all your users listed, and you have all, maybe you have no groups. Maybe you never did an organizational unit, build a new group. You have no security groups, and all your computers are listed. That's okay for a very small organization, but you have to be a very small organization. If you work in a company with 3 areas, these are the 3 main areas I usually pick on. Finance, because every company has a finance department, more or less. Maybe a PR division, public relations. Most companies have a PR division, so that might be another group in another set of cubicles. It could be another office space. When I worked for a nonprofit, we were in an old school, and they had us separated into different schoolrooms, and then they had cubicles cut in those rooms. So there was a printer in each room. So in essence, what I decided to do was I set up security groups by location. So I'd set up HR print. Maybe I'd set up finance print. And then I would put those users in that group, or, add that group to their profile. And why we wanted to do that was because then when I'm setting up my print server and I know the printer is in the HR department, I can simply say I want to give the print HR group permissions to use their own printer. It's just so much cleaner and so much easier, but it takes you to organize your Active Directory. If your Active Directory is not organized, get on that and start organizing it. If you're a small company, if you're a startup, and you're listening to these shows for a little bit of tips to get your servers and stuff running, fantastic. I'm glad you're here. But listen to what I have to tell you and say, look, start setting up some organizational units now, because if your company grows, and I hope you do, and you go from a 5-person company to a 500-person company, you're going to have a lot easier time managing it if you build it now. Okay, now let's go with assuming the names are correct. Click OK and return to the Properties dialog box where you selected the users and the groups. you will now be included that are now included in the group and list of names. To configure the permissions, select the user or the group. Remember, groups are so much easier. And set the permissions in the Permissions For section of the dialog box. Click Apply to commit the changes and repeat this task for as many users or groups. So let's say that finance department. Let's say you work for a bank. Well, the whole bank is a finance department. Let's try to take this down a little bit. Let's say you work for Cogswell Cogs. If you ever watched the Jetsons years ago, that was a cartoon I watched growing up. There was a guy that George Jetson worked for Cogswell Cogs. They sold little gears, right? Well, they have a big finance department because they have purchasing, they have billing, they have payroll, all these people working for them. It would be a lot easier to say something such as printer or finance printer than it would be to do something like 50 people picking each person. So this is why it's so much better to use groups. To configure a special permission, click on the Advanced button in the Security page of the Properties panel to display the Advanced Security Settings dialog, and you will be able to change their special permissions. To modify the permission of a user or group, select the object from the list and click Edit. To display the permission entry for dialog, in this dialog, both the standard and special permissions for the standard user or group are displayed and may be changed as required. As noted earlier, certain special permissions are implicit in standard permission settings. For example, setting the Manage Printers standard permission also enables the read, change, and take ownership special permissions. Once the desired permission changes have been made, click the OK to dismiss the permission entry for dialog, followed by the Apply button, then click OK in the Advanced Security Settings dialog. Finally, click OK to dismiss the property box and return to your print management. Now, changing the printer ownership. After a printer has been installed by the owner, by default is System. System is the owner most times when we work with servers. Ownership may be taken either by the administrator or by a user or group that has been assigned take ownership permission for the printer. The assigned ownership to another user or group, open the Properties dialog box, select the Security tab, and then click on Advanced. In the Advanced Settings screen, click on the Owner tab. This screen will list the current owner together with a list of users or groups which have ownership and may be changed if you need to do so. It is intended that the new owners is not listed in the Change Owner To list. Click on the Other Users or Groups button to access the Select Users or Group dialog box. Enter the name of the group or the user and click on Check Names, obviously, and the correct name be selected. Click OK to return to the Owners box. Select the desired owner, click the list, click Apply to commit the changes of the owner. Now, let's talk just a little bit about printer polling configuration. Printer polling refers to the process of allocating multiple physical print devices to a single logical printer. In such a configuration, let me go back here and see where we're at here. Let's see here. Okay, in such a configuration, print jobs to the local printer are assigned to the print server to the first available physical printer in the pool. So we're building a pool of printers. A key requirement is that the physical printer that makes up the pool must all use the same print driver and have the same amount of memory. So what we're doing there basically is, let's say we have, and we try to buy all the same printers. And the reason we do that is because it's a lot easier for the folks that order the toner cartridges to order based on one model. When you start getting a bunch of models of printers in your network, you put a very large task on somebody that has to start working with all those different printers and buying cartridges. So let's say, for instance, we're using HP LaserJet, I don't know, pick a number, 3200, if that's even a printer for LaserJets. So we have HP LaserJet 3200s. Let's say we have a bank of 3 of those that's accessible by our HR department. Our HR department consists of 30 people. They do a lot of printing. And those 30 people in that HR department send their print to a printer pool, to a pool of printers. They don't pick one printer. It's just a pool that you configured. And all those printers are sitting in their office in a certain general area, that's accessible by everybody. And it hits that. And let's say Jane, Bobby, and Jim all print at the same time. They hit print. Well, instead of one printer queuing that stuff up in its print queue, in this situation, all printers act as one. So when they walk over, their print job could be either on print 1, printer 2, or printer 3. The server doesn't care because they're all the same model. They all have the same drivers. It just goes out and it takes the first available print spool, it sends it, and it prints your job out. This is fantastic stuff for folks out there that have, a lot of people that do a lot of printing. It saves a ton of time and it allows you to create a very large print spool based on how big you need it. So that is really how you set up the print management. It's not really rocket science. I tell you guys this all the time. This is just something that you need to work with a little bit. You need to play with it a little bit, and you need to get, involved with the print server. So, and I know, believe me, if you're a one-man shop and you have 250 computers you're worried about, that would tell me that you probably have 250 users that you're obviously worried about. I'm sure you have maybe 4 or 5 servers already. Minimum of 3, I hope. Let me think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Minimum of maybe 4, right? You got your Active Directory, running your Active Directory, your DHCP, and your DNS. You may have your file server, your application server, and file server, application server. Yeah, so 3 primary servers that you're currently running. So now I'm going to throw this 4th one on top of you, and you can put your print server, if you're not doing an abundance of printers, you can load the print server role onto one of your existing servers because it's not going to really pound it that hard. So you can actually do that. If you're a larger company, if you have 250,000 employees and 250,000 computers, if you do work in the banking industry that has, we have a bank here in Pittsburgh that's a tower, and I can't even imagine how many people work in that tower for this one banking industry. But I would have to guess that they have so many printers on their network that they would want to have a separate print server running to manage all that because it's going to take up some CPU time that way. It's going to start taking up some RAM to process all those print jobs. So then maybe in that instance, you would want to have your own print server running. And you can do it. Remember, we build a lot of stuff for growth. Don't be one of these guys, and we need to discuss one day a little bit more in depth. I don't know if we talked about one time or not about designing designing and building a server. And we need to talk a little bit about, what it takes. I build everything for growth. I don't buy a server today based on what I need today. I build a server today based on what I believe I'm going to need 2 years down the road. And this will help you with your board of directors when you're going to ask for a budgetary sum of money, because what it's going to do for you is allow you to go in with a more positive role, because they know that you're not going to say every year, I need to buy a server. I need to buy more storage. I need to buy a server. I need to buy more storage. That gets really old, folks, really fast. Even our wireless, we designed our wireless based on something that, we project that the wireless will be hitting 2 years from now. And you can be off. A very wise man told me once in computers that he said, Jack, if you can design your systems and build it today to take on the roles of what you think is going to be happening 1 year from now, you're doing really good. Um, so I live by the 2 year rule because I try to look out for 2 years, and I try to figure out what I'm doing for that 2 years. The server architecture and the server technology today, such if you're right now, we know server 2003, we know that's dying. So if you have that in your network, it's time to push that out of your network and migrate those servers. I would tell you to migrate to 2012. And the reason I tell you to do that is because we know it has a more longevity than 2008, right? 2008 doesn't, we know 2008 will be expiring because they're already working on the next big thing. You know how Microsoft is. You guys have been around Microsoft a long time. Any company are always working on the next big thing. That's how they get paid. So, anyway, so 2003 server, make sure that you start washing that out. But the longevity of 2012 is there, and it's solid, and it works well. We have one set up right now, and we still have 2008 servers. We have like 5 2008 servers running. So 2008's okay. If you're running it, don't worry about it. It's fine, and it's going to be around too. I don't know how long. I can't project this stuff, but so if you're building out today and you're looking at 2 years down the road, build a 2012 server and start at that starting point. Okay, learn to use it. If you have to, load the classic shell on it. It'll work. If you don't like the tiles, which who does? I think that's the most ridiculous thing Microsoft could have ever done in their world, and that shows because they got rid of the CEO that thought, "Whoa, this is a great idea." It's not, especially on the server side. Consumer computing is way different than business computing. I mean, you'd have to agree that consumer computing is all about ease of use and creativity. That's today's consumer computing, because when people take pictures, they want to take those pictures, plug them into their computer, maybe make them pretty, give them a black and white image or whatever, and they want to be able to post them to Facebook. That's consumer computing. Business computing, we have to worry about things like maybe you have to worry about Outlook. Maybe you have to worry about Exchange servers if you're not cloud hosting your email. And I did a whole show about that. Look back on about email servers, in-house or out. I would always elect out-of-house. I don't want my Exchange server in-house because I just think that's bad news. Anyway, so, you look at this stuff and you try to project everything for 2 years out. But business computing is way different than consumer computing. And that's today. That's why you still don't see a lot of Macs in business. And we use them, but, we're in a different role than most people out there in industry. But if I was working for a large company, I would probably, and I hate to say this, but I guess I would have a standard of Windows. I would have a standard right now of Windows 7. Windows 10, I guess, is looking better. I tried to load it the other night and can't get it to work with Parallels. I don't know why. It says drivers are missing. If any of you have tried it and got it to work, email me, let me know what I'm doing wrong. I would really appreciate that. But the bottom line is, it's way different. And Microsoft tried to make it across the board all the same, and they put that same garbage on our servers. We don't want that on our servers. We don't need tiles. We don't need live weather on our servers. It's just really just a bad idea. Okay, folks. So anyway, we're going to wrap it up there, and I'm going to leave you go with that note. And hopefully you'll send me some emails and let me know what I'm doing wrong with my Parallels in my Windows 10 so I can start playing with that. Folks, please remember to use my Amazon link. You can find that at my website, tipsfromtheserverroom.com. If you have an ad blocker on, please shut the ad blocker off. That helps a lot. And share the love with those Amazon links. If you're going to buy anything, use the Amazon links. And I know all podcasters asked you to, and I know if you're watching this show on YouTube now, or if you're listening to this show on iTunes or wherever you are pulling it down from, my website or wherever, you listen to a lot of shows, and I can appreciate that. All podcasters need listeners. If we don't have listeners, there's no sense of us talking to ourselves. And this show is done very well in its little young existence, and I appreciate you being here. So, use my Amazon link, use somebody else's for something else, use somebody else's for something. If you're going to buy a car, use my Amazon link. If you're going to buy, a pencil set, use somebody else. I'm just kidding. Don't worry about that. I'm just really making that up. Anyway, check that out at tipsfromtheserverroom.com. If you want to learn about Windows Server, we talked earlier about Active Directory, organizational units, and all that. If you're not sure about that stuff and you've never worked with it, you may want to sign up for one of my online classes. They are available now. I get a lot of emails that says, Jack, when does the online classes start? The online classes are all the time. They're there for you to start it when you want to. If I'm in bed at 2 in the morning and, in your part of the world, it might be 8 o'clock at night, and you're like, I want to start that class, but Jack might be sleeping. Don't worry about it. Go to tipsfromtheserverroom.com, click on the online class link at the top of the page, and that will take you into the courses. It's Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012 R2, and ESXi Server 5.5, and this is from installation to administration. You watch a video, you take a short quiz. At the end of that, I will mail you a certificate. So you get a certificate in the mail, and that is good for putting that with your resume. It proves that you have taken the course. The courses are very inexpensive, so don't say, well, I probably can't afford it. I made these courses so I can kind of pay this stuff forward and help you learn without you having to go, to one of the major universities and pay a ton of money because you want to learn Windows Server. So if you already know about computers, but you want to beef it up, or you already know something about servers and you want to know a little bit more, these courses are for you. So check those out. Once again, at tipsfromtheserverroom.com, click on the online class link, and you can learn at your own pace. And once you're a member of this course, once you sign up, you will always be there. Don't think that when you're done, I delete your name and say you can never come again. Come back again. Rewatch the videos, because I know that's very important, right? We may not need it today, but you might need that knowledge, a year after you complete the course. You can come back and watch that video. Folks, have a great work week, and I will talk to you here next Tuesday for another show. Don't forget to spread the word around there on Twitter, or spread the word on your Facebook posts, or wherever, or Google Plus, wherever you talk on social media, and say, look, you can now not only listen to Tips from the Server Room, I'm checking out this video to see how many people view this, but you can now watch the podcast being created, which whatever glory that is. But you get to see me, all my gray beard and all, and get to watch me actually record the podcast here at tipsfromtheserverroom.com. Check it out at YouTube, and as at 42Technoman. The number 4, the number 2, Technoman. Take care, my friends. Have a great work week, and I'll see you here next Tuesday for another Tips from the Server Room. Bye for now. You just listened to Tips from the Server Room with your host, Jack. If you have any questions, please drop me a comment at tipsfromtheserverroom.com. Thanks again for tuning in and downloading the shows. Now sit back, relax, and listen to the remainder of the music. We'll see you next week on Tips from the Server Room. So long.